I'm undercoating the top 3/4 of the board with white paint, just a little bit of white, and then I'll dip it in a little bit of cobalt blue and give it a blue tint. So that's white with a very little blue tint. Just a bit of blue here and there. Have a close look, but not much, just a bit of blue here and there, just so you haven't got pure white. Now on my palette, I like this little palette, the chopping board. I have cobalt blue, a little bit of raw sienna, and a little tiny bit of crimson, and plenty of white available. Pick up a little bit of blue and give us a misty tree, a very misty tree. That's a little bit dark, lighter. You can rub your colours in to get what you want. It's very misty. The more misty you can make it, the more realistic it'll look. So put those misty trees all over your painting. Leave spaces between them, little white spaces, just a blotchy, misty look. My paint's dry. I'll put some white up there ready. Blotchy, misty look. And you can do that if you wish, yes. On the corner and on the edges I've gone a little bit dark. I always do. Keep the light in towards the middle of the picture. Put your colours together on the board. That's white and blue. Try not to have any pure white, and certainly not any pure blue. The blue is much too dark for the tones we need here. And make sure all your board is covered. All the top of the board, don't worry about the bottom. Just make sure all the top of your board is covered with paint, so there's no canvas showing and we don't need to go back over it. A little bit darker in the corner there. I put some white over the top and rubbed it in because it was too dark. Just take your time, but don't keep working on it until you've got nothing left. Make sure you've got spaces between your tones. Along here. Just a mist, that's all we want. Then with my flat hog bristle brush, I'll dirt it in the blue paint to make sure it's got blue on it and nothing else. And pick up a little bit of the blue, there's a little bit on there already, and a little bit of the white. Get some light tones on your brush, and with that we can paint in some ghosty tree trunks in the background there, very softly. That one's a little bit dark. I picked up some white on the side of the brush and I'll run a white line down that. That should look okay. And that white will fade into the blue. It's hard to keep a pure white line when both paints are wet. That'll fade into the blue. That's okay. Another one here. You see it's starting to look like misty bush? That's exactly what we want. There's a big one there. Keep that one facing into the picture. As long as you have light on one side of the brush, a bit darker on the other side of the brush, it'll give you the look of a round tree trunk. There we are, and darken it in here, and clean our brush across the bottom. And the same on the other side. Leaning out of the picture. That's okay, we'll compensate it by adding another one into the picture here. There's not much paint on my brush here, just a little bit of paint. Quite a big one there. Maybe another big one back in there. And again, I'll clean my brush down here. So that's given us our background trees. But we do need a few branches on them. I've picked up my round soft brush, not a very little one, a good size one. It's got two colours on, the light and the dark. This dark is too dark. You see it come off too dark. So I'll touch it up with a bit of white. Work it in. I'll clean my brush over here and I'll load it with a paler colour. That one was too dark. I'll leave it there now, we'll fix it later. And try to paint it very pale. Sometimes it's hard to stay pale with these, but stay pale with these lines. Just a few tree trunks like this in the distance. Not many, not too many, just enough to make it interesting, and make sure you know that this is a forest back here. A misty forest. That one wasn't dark enough. maybe some stuff laying on the ground. There's a bit darker one on the brush there. That's too dark. That's okay. There's some twigs and things laying on the ground. Just a bit of something laying on the ground there. And you can come forward and slowly come darker as you come forward with these brush strokes. Put a few over here. If we place one somewhere like that over here, that'll give us a bit more perspective. Our eye will travel up into the forest or into this gully here to see where that white goes. I'll brush in something dark there. Just here I'll have something dark, just a little bit darker there, so the eye doesn't travel off the picture there. So that's our background finished. Now for the foreground. Let's fill it in with a blue first. That's a good idea. What I want you to learn here is to keep your brush very clean when you're working in the background and to separate your colours, your background colours from the foreground colours. Here I'm filling it in with a blue because it's very convenient. The blue is just there, but we'll put the red in. But we don't want any red getting into the background. By red I mean crimson. That's a pretty blue, that cobalt blue. Very pretty. Then with a little bit of crimson on your brush, run it right along the bottom. And then crisscross it up into the blue, and that'll give you a pretty purple. It's a very strong colour, the crimson. It'll come out almost black. It's not black. Don't use black. Use these colours rather than black. I'll put white, and over the top of that I'll run some raw sienna. And with the fan brush we can turn that into grass. Well, mine's dry already. So there's blue grass there, that's okay. Coming into green, leave some of your whites, just leave a few of your whites there. And bring this into the picture. And then bring the crimson up into it. If you're working in oils, be careful. Just do it once, that's all, just once. Because I'm working in acrylics, I can brush over a few times because the paint dries a bit. Sometimes if your paints are wet in acrylic, you still have to be very delicate with your brush strokes. Now in there we'll paint a little cottage. To paint the little cottage I've picked up on my size 10 flat hog bristle brush some blue, that's cobalt blue. We might as well stay with the colours we're using. We could use burnt umber or something like that, but it stands out too much. Let's just use this. I'll introduce the other colours later. Now the cottage, where to put the cottage? Not too close to the edge, not in the middle, and let's say about there. Now there's the middle of the board, that's about a quarter of the way in from the edge of the board. I'll put the cottage there, and I'll block it in, and I'll show you why I block it in here. It's only a little house, very little. That makes the trees look big. Also, if you paint a little one and make a mistake, you can always make it bigger by painting over the top of it. You might want to sketch this on a pad sometime when you're doodling. Your cottage is this shape. That's the shape of your cottage. And then your roof goes on. It goes up here. Like that. And the roof is filled in here. So it's bigger because it's close to us here than what it is there or there. Also, I've got my cottage a little bit low. Your eye level, imagine if you were standing in a forest like this, your eye is about this height. So if you're standing in the house, your eye wouldn't be right up here, your eye would be about there. So my cottage is a bit low. So let's make a bigger cottage and I'll take it up. And that fixes that. So you judge the height of your cottage by the eye level. And the eye level is about there, and that is about the top level of the window. or halfway up the window, because these are huge trees. These are very big trees. So if you're standing under the tree, you're standing about there. The tree might be 100 or 200 feet high. Huge, huge. And there's another window. So that's the height of your cottage. It's determined by the horizon line. The horizon line runs straight through there. On that line, everything is level. I'll block those out. We don't need them at the moment. They're just a reference for you. And you can sketch this on your practice board as many times as you wish. Now I've finished blocking in the roof. The roof is this shape. That's our cottage, blocked in blue. I have a bit of crimson, that'll give me some darks. I picked up pure crimson there, but I didn't clean my brush, so we got both colours on the brush. I mixed my colours on the painting here. That's gone into a browny red-black, which is what we want. And here too. Let's have a bit here. Pretty vague over the front wall and dark over the other wall. A bit of crimson on my brush. I'll put on the roof. I think burnt sienna would look better there. And with a little bit of burnt sienna, I'll run it through the white on my brush again. And you see that comes up, I'll put a bit of blue in it. Yeah, that comes up about the colour of rusty corrugated iron. So we'll pick that up on the tip of the brush and take it across to our house. Watch the way I use the brush. Place the brush on using this flat edge as my guide, and it goes on the top of the roof, and then I pull the brush down the roof. That gives me my pieces of tin. Because I haven't mixed my paint completely, it gives me stripes. So that's the tin on the top of the roof. And the bottom of the roof, this is a bit harder brush stroke, but it works every time. Load the brush again, and the brush is very sharp. While the brush is loaded, we might as well put in a water tank. I'll put a little bit of dark on it also. I'll fill in here with some blue and burnt sienna. Will give me a shadow. The house needs some windows, window, door, window, and then with my round soft brush I picked up some burnt sienna and white. You can use a pure white or light blue for this line on here. A white line does look good at times. That line should have a bit of dark on it. And a little bit of detail on the windows. Don't do too much detail on the windows. There's no need to detail your house completely. It'll spoil your picture if you do. And sometimes a ladder leaning on the wall gives you a little bit of perspective there. And I think mine needs a white line about there. Now with my flat hog bristle brush loaded with paint, we'll put in the road. It comes towards us and the brush stroke gets bigger as it comes towards us. I loaded the brush with the two colours, but they're not mixed together. Touch it up here so it's a bit gravelly looking. And then with your fan brush, touch up the grass around the edge of the road. Bit of dark grass here. And I picked up a few bright colours, doesn't matter what it is. We'll have a few flowers around the edge of the house, just a few little flowers. If I unload that there, I can turn that into grass. Well, it's a bit light, maybe I don't like it. I can change it. And a similar bit here. Now we're ready for our big tree. We'll put our big tree in here. So I've loaded plenty of darks on my palette. I have the cobalt blue and the burnt sienna. That'll make a colour almost black. So we'll have a choice of 3 colours. We'll have cobalt blue, burnt sienna, or the dark colour that I mix. Very dark. Ooh, that white got in there. Don't let that white get in there. Then clean your knife first and dirty it on one side with the burnt sienna. Maybe a touch of blue, but don't mix the colours, just put them on the knife and pick up white with the dirty knife. And you see all those colours? They're going to be the colour of the bark on your tree. And pick up the dark on the other side of your knife. So your knife's loaded with the 2 colours, the dark and the light. And then you can sculpt your tree onto the painting. Now I want it to face in, so let's have it come right across here. There's plenty of paint on my knife, so I can afford to come right across here in one go and sculpture it on here. Don't worry about what's on the background. There. That's our first bit of a tree. Not quite wide enough in this area here. We have to balance it with what's up the top there. And because it's that shape, oh, it's the same shape as a branch in the background. That wasn't intended. That just happened. We need another one here. I've loaded the knife again in exactly the same way and bring another big tree down through here. Maybe we wobble it a bit. A few more darks. And have a very dark butt on your tree. Now with a little round brush with our colours loaded, we can paint in our branches. Pull them in facing towards the house. That brings the eye around the picture. One here, here. Try and have a few branches crossing, like that one. And this one comes into the picture also. We can add some white on these too. A little bit of a white line also, as well as a blue line. And on the inside of this tree, I'll run a very white line. It may be the whitest bit of your picture. It's that line down the inside of the tree there. And again here. So just hold your brush with a couple of fingers, pull it down and twist it off. Now with the tip of your knife loaded in the same way with the darks and lights, we can place in our fence posts. Fence posts to go well right there. Don't stop it on that line. Have it stop below the line or above the line. Trouble is, if I put it there, it lines up with that tree. That's not a good idea. I think I'll bring it back here. It's our first fence post. And again, have them leaning, and they're very dark. It throws the background back further. Maybe a strut on this one. You don't need to put that in if you don't wish. If there's something there very pretty behind it, just leave it out. Another one here. And a little one in the distance. Not so obvious. On the top of your fence posts, put a daub of white. Here I load my knife by touching it in the darker paints. That'll give us wire on the fence, and then we place the wire on the fence. That's it. That's an easy way to paint wire. Now the bottom of the fence post must look like it disappears into the ground. Make sure there's a dark colour under there, and the same with the tree. That tree looks like it's floating. We'll change that. Touch it up. Put a few dark colours there. And we turn it into grass. That was burnt sienna and cobalt blue, and that'll give us grass. I'd like to see something just laying around here. Just a few sticks. There was 2 colours on the knife, just touch them on. And then the same for the other side of our painting. You can make the wire cut across the house if you wish. There. Ooh, good straight wire, isn't it? Nice and tight. Maybe he still lives there. That's the wire. Now to paint a wheel leaning on this post, just draw a circle. It doesn't have to be round, something like that. Pick up some dark colours on the tip of your brush. You see I'm using 2 fingers and the colour is on the tip of my brush. Paint in a few spokes for the wheel. And again, don't be too fussy. This is an old wheel, it's been around a lot, and also it's got a lot of spokes missing, and it's possibly not round anymore. Then I'll paint in the centre of the wheel. And it should come to life now when I touch up the grass around it. For some reason I've got a line across there. It could be the shadow of the tree. That's alright. I do prefer to see the road going through between those posts. It doesn't matter. Don't you try and copy my picture exactly. But it is a good idea to have a white bit about there in the painting. So that'll attract your eye to that area through the posts and up to the cottage. So that picture could be finished. It's up to you. If you want to put leaves on your trees, okay. But if you just want to put a few more branches and leave it, that's okay too. I'll put leaves on it. I'll pick up plenty of blue and burnt sienna together on the brush at once. That's a round hog bristle brush and it's saturated with paint. It's a wet brush, not a dry brush. I'll pick up raw sienna on the other side, so that gives me the 2 colours. You see how it's pulled to a nice chisel point? Then with our dab dab, we can put foliage on that tree. Not a lot. You can see through it. Anything on the tree you don't particularly like, you can put foliage over it. You mightn't want to put foliage on. You can leave your tree without foliage. But I'm putting the foliage on so you know what to do. There you are. And up here. And here. I'll fill this corner in. So then your eye has to travel up the tree and in that direction. Also, I think with a little round brush we can have some bark hanging off the tree and make it look old and weathered here and there. I'll darken that intersection of the tree and the bottom here. Empty my brush. A few little branches here and there, not many. Just a couple. I think it needs a branch up there too, just to balance it. Bit of dark. Oh, that turned out a nice little painting. So that's our little cottage in the bush. That's a good exercise, and it's a good idea to make sure you break the background from the foreground, and you work with white paint in the background with tints in, and in the foreground you work with your dark paints, and that'll give you a 3-dimensional look.